Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of Unfinished Business Television. I'm your host, Jeff Galashaw, at Unfinished B2 for any social inquiries. And also with me, as always, is tech support co-host extraordinaire, Andre Joseph of AJ Epics Productions.
Every day is a winding road. I get a little bit closer.
Yes, indeed. And we are bringing you this month's episode of your favorite commentary about film news, reviews, and trailers. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, first up, not that this is the biggest news, but Paul Mescal is being eyed for a role in Sam Mendes' Beatles movies. I think there's going to be 4 movies following each of them. He's going to be one of the Beatles in this movie, but this is the first name we've heard, lobbied about for a role in the film.
It's a good choice. He's got the cred to be one of the Beatles. I don't know if he'll be Paul or John, but, see how they shape it all up.
Well, if he's truly a transformative actor, he'll play Ringo. Because I don't think he's like, yes, that's what I was hoping for, or I don't see him as a George. So,
Nah, I don't know who could play George. Maybe that Iman Boscarat guy from The Bear.
He'd be a very tall.
He was a tall guy, if you remember.
I just figured that. It's Sam Mendes. He's more of a theatrical director, so he could. But then again, I feel like they're going to get all like Europeans actors to play these roles. You're not going to find too many Americans, unless maybe Aaron Taylor Johnson is like Paul.
My big question is, will they have the 5th Beatle, which is Billy Preston, in this?
Probably as a cameo. And if they do, it'll be a big name, probably, depending on budget. But I'm like, you're paying for 4 movies. You tell me you can't spend an extra $100,000 to get a recognizable name to play.
Get Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Hey, he needs a comeback. Drop
seriously.
Even though that was like 20 years ago.
I don't think his TV show is on anymore. The Resident. I don't know if that's still on the air.
Oh, man. Well, then maybe he needs the money. He'll need that paycheck. Yeah. And it'd be nice seeing Theo on the big screen. He just has to avoid, any questions about Cosby Show and Bill Cosby.
Yeah, well, everybody has to deal with that from that show.
Exactly. Well, most avoid it except for Felicia Rashad.
Did you know your on-screen dad had a giant gynecologist office underneath his house? That's weird.
He didn't want to be away from home.
Sure, Jan.
You saw only a few times did he ever go to the hospital, so it's like they knew him there. So here
they knew him.
Exactly. He had his private sex practice down there. So sorry, I don't want to sully the legacy of the show, but come on, you guys are all thinking it. Next, Wake Up Dead Man, the next in the Knives Out murder mystery in the series of films. The first castings were Andrew Scott, Kaylee Spaney, and Josh O'Connor. And then I think they realized, like, okay, and so they brought out the bigger names, Jeremy Renner, Mila Kunis, and Kerry Washington. I think Rian Johnson, all these are great actors, but I think maybe he learned his lesson after the Glass Onion movie about always casting like more stars and names rather than actors. So maybe this time he's like, I'm going to go with more talent this time rather than just, I can get Edward Norton. I can get Janelle Monáe, So he's like, let me get tried and true actors who are making a splash. Even with Mila Kunis. And Kerry Washington's cool, but Mila Kunis, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's the sense that I get. I think he's trying to tone down on the star power. And not that, I like Glass Onion. I just definitely think that, you're going to have some actors that are going to stand out and be highlighted, and then other talented actors that I feel like their roles really weren't really weighted enough for the movie, like Catherine Hahn and a few others in there. Even Dave Bautista, I thought was going to have a bigger part, and then they just knock him off. So, yeah, this is kind of a nice little change in pace. And just from that teaser they put out, I'm almost wondering if this is going to be like a Haunting in Venice kind of deal. If they're going to go more like a horror movie route as opposed to a Clue type of deal.
Well, I mean, it would set it apart, like where you have Glass Onion, where it's like secluded island, and then the first film is more your typical just on the estate. So this one, hey, why not? Maybe go to a foreign city, show the beauties, or make it a little more darker than the previous films, while still having that whimsy humor, dark-hearted humor. But we'll see. I mean, I'm interested in the film, even with Mila Kunis in it. So I will. Well, it's on Netflix. I can't avoid it. So like, I'll maybe watch it. It'll be like, it's on there. It's not like it's Jennifer Lopez Atlas, where I can just be like, no. And next, for some, well, I guess to widen its wide world appeal, there will be The Boys Mexico, starring Gael Garcia Bernal. It's still a ways off, and the original showrunner will be behind it. But, I'm like, I enjoy The Boys, but I'm like, we have the upcoming season coming out, and then it's already been approved for next season, even though I thought this season was going to be the last season. So it's like, if it can somehow make sense to go into The Boys Mexico, maybe putting more of a color, people of color, more in the main roles, like it seems like they tried to do with Generation V. But it'll be interesting to see what it like. I just hope they're not gonna make it like, oh, this is like Narcos, only with superpowers. Which I'm afraid from an American studio. But I think with Eric Kripke behind it, it'll stay on course. And maybe, hopefully, it'll be sort of like Breaking Bad and Never Call Saul, where it's like, yeah, you could have watched one, but here's a kind of the same different animal, but with maybe some recurring characters.
I agree that Eric could keep it together tonally and make it interesting and make it as gory as the other shows. I just feel like it's already too much. I literally just like binged Gen V just a couple of months ago after it first came out. I didn't really have time when it first got released. And I just think that, that The Boys is already, we're getting into what, season 4, season 5.
Mm-hmm.
And, it already feels like we're sort of at the halfway point of that story, and Gen V is still just getting started. I mean, they had the setback with the one actor that recently died, unfortunately, and they have to now address that in season 2. I just worry about overexposure because The Boys in that first year was just incredible. It was groundbreaking. It kind of gave me the vibe of the original RoboCop with the satire aspect of it and still addressing real world shit in its own way. But I just worry that if we're trying to really expand out this world beyond, what we're doing with the 7, it just, I don't know. It becomes too much to handle. It's not like watching Law and Order where you could have like 3 different shows with multiple different characters you can follow. This is just like, well, we're expanding in this region and that region and these kids in college. And it's too much to follow where it's like, where is this all going to ultimately intersect and end up?
I totally agree. Speaking of overexposure, there is a new, or planning to be a new Dexter prequel series with Patrick Gibson playing Dexter, Molly Brown, and the only reason I'm interested in this, Christian Slater in the James Remar role. I thought Dexter was pretty much the whole franchise was dead after they tried to do this latest updated season. I'm like, I understand the prequel route, but it kind of feels like, remember Hannibal Rising? It feels like we're going that route where it's somewhat interesting, but it's not needed. I'm fine with Dexter the way he's. I mean, I know there's a series of books out of Dexter, so maybe that's where they want to tell more Dexter stories of when he was younger, but it's like you were just saying about overexposure. Learn to let some things go and let them live their legacy that way. Now, if you want to pick it up 20 years from now, I can understand, but stop trying to squeeze blood out of the orange right now. It's like, I understand you want that fan base, but again, the only people who are going to be fans are the people who are already fans, and you're hoping that their kids will watch it, but they're not going to be, because again, it's going to be associated as their dad's or their mom's show. So why don't you give it time for that generation to grow up, discover, do the prequel, then they discover like, hey, this Dexter thing is really good. Maybe I should go watch those old, episodes that originally came out. Give it time. Same thing with Batman. Stop one after the other, different iterations, then saying it's the multiverse. That's the same thing of like writing a story, then saying, oh, it was all a dream. Or you don't introduce the true killer in a murder mystery till 10 pages when we're reaching the end. And we already have all these scenarios in our head. It's a fucking cop-out.
Here's the problem. It's not just the bitter taste that Dexter New Blood left in the fans' mouths, because honestly, the way that it ended, I mean, it was poetic, but it was also kind of bullshit, how it all kind of unraveled. Here's the problem. The first 2 seasons of Dexter had a lot of flashbacks of his history, how he witnessed his mother's murder, how his father, Harry, had to take him in, raise him, saw that he had these murderous tendencies and had to give him this code so he could actually take that rage against criminals. That was already all explored from his childhood to when he was in his youth, like in his late teens or 20s, and the father ultimately offed himself. So you're not telling us anything new by trying to go into his history. This is not young Shelton, okay? This is basically reiterating what was already discovered and explored in those first 2 seasons of Dexter. Now, granted, liberties were taken when they made changes from the book, when they did the series. There's a lot of things, even my friend Albert Albanese, who I'll shout out to, who's a big fan of the books, could tell you that there were differences in terms of characters that got killed off early, characters that, survived all throughout, and other things that went on, certain discoveries that were never made, and the showrunners just kind of went their own route with it. So I could see where a prequel could just maybe either be a straight adaptation of the book or just go in a completely different direction where it completely ignores continuity. But again, it's too soon after Dexter New Blood to do that. And like you said, it should be more of a generational thing. Wait like another decade before you restart Dexter or do a movie of it instead. But I don't see the point in this. I don't think it's going to capture anybody's interest. And I think it's just simply to hold on to the rights. It's not about, oh, we have this all other new thing we want to explore. It's just nonsense. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next, we have they're doing a dark reimagining of the Munsters called 1313. For, I guess, this is a property that always seems to come up as a remake or them trying to redoing. You had the Jerry O'Connell kind of series that was actually well thought out and quite original, but, unfortunately, they only made the pilot and then kind of released it as like a TV movie. Then you had, this Rob Zombie, I'll give it to him. He tried to make an extended origin story that was sitcom worthy. And, it had its moments, but ultimately it didn't work, which I think was due to maybe trying to make it look like a 1950s horror movie and also using his stable of actors that he always uses, none of which are really stars, that will make you run to go see this movie, but rather like his actors trying their best to do this role or that role. And, I'm interested. I'd have to see who's behind it and where it goes before I can really get excited. I'll admit, I grew up watching The Munsters. It's not my favorite television show. I mean, I more probably remember the episodes of, The Munsters Today? That used to be on Channel 9 in syndication. But like I said, Hollywood, another thing where they're trying to get blood from a rock. If it works, great, but I won't be shocked if the masses don't go for it. I think it's all because they are jealous of the Addams Family always being successfully rebooted. They're like, we're gonna get it right sometime. So we're going to keep trying. So, Andre, how are you feeling about this news?
Well, I think you're on the money on that. I think this is in a response to the success of Wednesday. They just want another crack at that particular property, even though, again, too soon after that Rob Zombie movie, which nobody saw, but still, what's the point of doing this other than to hold on to rights and thinking you could do a different direction with this? I didn't grow up with the Munsters. I was aware of it when it was on syndication, and I do actually remember the revised version that you were just talking about on Channel 9. I didn't watch it, but I do remember the ads for it as a kid. Yeah, I would give this a complete pass, in my opinion.
Okay. There will be a Vision series in 2026 by the showrunner of Picard. And I'm just happy because that means more Paul Bettany, who will be at this year's New York Comic Con. If I do decide to go, depending on price, I might get a picture and an autograph and then spend the whole time asking him about his wife. So, no, probably. Obviously, this is now Marvel seems to be moving in secret with their future plans because I don't think they even know. So I think they're like trying to like throw like what did the fans actually like, and let's throw our power behind that. Hence why Agatha, the series, keeps getting renamed for no reason. If that's the case, just call it Agatha. It's that simple. Well, you're more the Marvel DC expert. How are you feeling about this news?
Well, I remember there were the rumblings that this show was going to be made for some time, and there was even rumblings it was going to get canceled, but I guess now it's definitely official. It's moving forward. I like Paul Bettany in the role. I actually really liked him in Age of Ultron when he first debuted as Vision. Just something almost Christopher Reeve-like about him in that first appearance that I really gravitated to. But again, I'm just... with these Marvel shows, it seems like they're still not learning their lesson. I just think that like X-Men 97 really knocked it out the park because it gave fans what they wanted. It stayed true to the comic books. And even though you have those section of people that are like, oh, it's very woke. No, that is X-Men. That's what we remember from the comic books, from its inception by Stan Lee. It is an allegory for civil rights. Now, the problem I see right now is that they like while they're trying to slow down their output and not put as many movies and shows out now, which I think is a good thing to avoid overexposure, it's still the case of like, where are they getting the metrics that they think people want this shit? Who wants Wonder Man? Who really wants an Agatha series? I'm fine with Catherine Hahn getting, another appearance in like a Doctor Strange sequel, or, she shows up in Secret Wars. That's fine. But to do an entire show all around her, where are the metrics? Oh, because the song did well on iTunes? Like, no, this is not what's driving up subscriptions on Disney Plus. And I don't see the excitement in doing an entire series around Vision, who, quite frankly, I don't think he ever really had his own run solo in the comic books outside of the Avengers. And if he did, it probably had to be a limited run, because I don't see where there's a whole lot of people that are going to actually like, oh, I got to check this out. Because quite honestly, I'm not going to watch Agatha. I'm not going to watch Ironheart or some of these other shows that are coming up unless it's X-Men or something that I think is a character or a team that is worthy of having an entire run, the ones that actually do sell. And they have to learn that lesson, not that they have to build an audience that doesn't give a shit about Marvel. Just because, oh, we're going to have diversity, we're going to have more women and more, superheroes of color. Do it the right way, but you got to look at the money. You got to look at the metrics if you want to have success here.
Well, I agree, because again, it feels like you're just taking fan favorites. Like you said, Agatha, the song did well, and people liked, that little final twist. So they were like, oh, well, now we have to build a series behind it. And it's like, and we can get Aubrey Plaza because she's free, and that's really the only reason you're making it. Like, I know they have this now policy where it's like, in the future, they're going from where you had to watch all this to understand this.
Yeah.
Now they're like, oh, you could jump in at any time. But yeah, that's because you're making it so random that it makes no sense. You're chasing a trend instead of having a good reason for this to come out. And I mean, that's great if you have the money to throw, but it's like Disney, you keep failing. So why are you keep doing the things that messed you up in the first place, just in a different way? So that's where I'm just like, I like Paul Bettany. I'd like to see the series, but again, what is it going to be based upon? What is he really going to be doing?
Right.
What story really needs to be told here? You know, he became sentient only to be with Scarlet Witch. I'm sure you're going to bring her back eventually, but like, what's the sense of this series if he's not with Scarlet Witch? You know, like, it just feels like, well, we owe Paul Bettany money, so we gotta give him something to do.
And I just want to reiterate, like, I'm not against female superheroes or, you know, the more inclusive characters. I would love to see a Deathlock show. I think Deathlock is a compelling character who's black, but has a compelling story of a guy much like RoboCop who becomes a cyborg and he's, you know, separate from his family life. I would like to see that on Disney Plus, but I just don't like the randomization of it or injecting politics or just feeling like, okay, we have one female superhero, now we got to double down on it. Like, no, let's mix it up here because you have other major big money characters that should be on screen that you're not tapping into yet. And that's driving me nuts.
Well, it's sort of like what you said with X-Men 97. Like, look, I don't know what happened in this dude's personal life other than him having an OnlyFans that, you know, you removed him as showrunner. But it proves, once again, your most successful thing was run by somebody who had a passion for it and who really was in love. Now, my thing, you have how many executives who probably have personal problems that we just don't know about yet? But because this guy supposedly only has an OnlyFans where, you know, it's more, I guess, homosexual in nature, that's your only reason for, like, really firing him or taking him off of your most successful show. But yet, when you keep making these projects, like, again, I hate to keep picking on her, but like Nia DaCosta for the Marvels, you're going to pick somebody, even though she didn't write the movie, she's just there to direct. And I understand she's a visionary director, but my thing is, when you put people in charge of these films who have no real interest in comic books, they're just taking the job as a career step up, that's the type of product you're going to get. But then when you get the people who are actually passionate and know their shit and know what the fans want, you take them down for the, like, slightest of personal problems. You know, like, I can understand if he was sexually harassing, but shit, you guys, well, not you, but WB still stood behind Joss Whedon when all those complaints were made about him. But this guy just has an OnlyFans page. It's just like how they tried to fire James Gunn after, from his past, they had, that X-rated, well, it was really R-rated, but like things that looked like they were going to be porn star scenarios and ended comedically. And people are like, oh, that's so sexist. And now look at you. You guys fired him. Then you begged him to come back. And now he's running the DC universe film-wise. So it's like, stop. I guess, unless somebody actually makes a complaint against the person, if it's successful and it's doing well, as they say, let them eat. And that's how I feel about, now you have this great hit. Now, whoever you put in for the second series is not going to be able to fill those shoes unless you either bring the original showrunner back, bring him back at a lesser capacity to help him, like, outline the sequel. Because whoever you're going to do, being that this will be their first season, they're going to want to, you know, kind of, no offense, use their big dick energy and be like, okay, this is how it's going to go. This is what I want. My first season here. My tenure. And I feel like maybe the fans and the story is going to suffer because of that. And
I could just say, just to cap off on this news, I don't think a lot of those Disney executives have squeaky clean pass. Exactly. So it's kind of, there's a lot of hypocrisy at that company. It ain't all about a clean mouse.
Shoot, it ain't out. I'm sure David Zaslav has tons in his fucking closet.
Way.
But then again, he just opens his mouth and it buries himself more and more. But I know we have other stories to go to, but this also, I have to go on my tirade. I saw Madam Web. It's best part of the movie, Mike Epps' death scene. Spoiler. I wish that played on a loop for 2 hours. It would have been better than the movie I watched. Here's the problem with Madam Web. It's like all the actors forgot how to act. And this is acting school. That's what it feels like. It feels like an acting school exercise because you have Sydney Penny in this movie seeming like she just stepped off of Saved by the Bell, the high school years. You have like each, I guess, future Spider-Woman of a different nationality. So again, this is obviously a wokeness thing. Dakota Johnson seems either high or like she doesn't want to be there. and the thing is, she's a good actress when she's in individual movies, but it seems like when you put her in a franchise, she turns on her auto drive and she's just like, yeah, monotone. She kind of shows like her mother's acting skills, Melanie Griffith. I don't know how this movie works. A tribe of spider people who wear netting that looks like spider webs. And then you have a villain who looks like Spider-Man 2099 in comics, who is trying to kill them because they're going to kill him in the future because he's a bad businessman. They never even make it clear why. Like, obviously he's into some bad shit, but we never know why. And then Zoiza Mamet from Girls is in here wearing this, like, she's a computer hacker. She has like all this exquisite clothes looking like a society woman. And you're sitting there and like, why is she working for this guy? Because we don't get any character development. And I doubt if there were sequels, we were going to expand her character. She just seems to be another name on the list, like Mike Epps. And then we have Ben Parker and his wife, Mary. So, man hasn't even been born yet, and this is modern day. But yet there's going to be these other Spider-Women. So I'm like, again, Sony, I don't know what the fuck you guys are on, but it's like that Gremlins, it's like that Key and Peele sketch about Gremlins 2, where it seems like the executives are all doing cocaine and taking any idea anybody suggests. It's like, and then the Parkers are in it, but Peter hasn't been born yet. But yet we have all these spider people running around New York, and they don't even know what superheroes are. So it's like, Sony, stop with. I understand you're like really trying hard to make Marvel give you Spider-Man again. You had your chance. They offered you all of Marvel back when they were in bankruptcy. You chose, we only want Spider-Man. Now you look like an idiot. Now you're trying to like freaking drive your forces up to the gate at Marvel and are like holding like, we got all the villains. You might as well give us what we want. Oh, you mean one of their biggest stars? So I'm just like, and because in the end, Sony with your endless Venom sequels, what was the fucking Jared Leto?
Mobius
with a Vulture cameo for no reason. You guys don't even know what the fuck you're doing with these universes. So I'm sorry, Sony, your best is still worse than anything Marvel can put out themselves, because at least theirs makes some kind of sense, and maybe why it's so bad. You guys are just like, it just feels like a shakedown to not only the Marvel studio but the audience, and it's kind of very, very, very insulting. And I mean, I know you're going to keep making, because Venom 3 is coming out later this year. I guess it's paying for Michelle Williams' Vila, because that seems to be the only movie she made, other than those really indie art films that like 5 people go to see a year. But I'm like, come on, Sony, stop it. This is treason at this point. So, that's all I have to say about that, because I'm sure we're going to discuss more superhero movies, and I'm going to have more to say there. So that's it for that. Now we can move on to another story. Young Mr. Glenn Powell, who some of you might remember from Top Gun Maverick, he gave an interview where he talks about passing on Jurassic World and a reboot of the Bourne movies, and he has no desire to ever star in a Marvel film. Also, he was one of the finalists to be Han Solo in Solo, and also for Captain America, the First Avenger, and roles in Cowboys and Aliens and Friday Night Lights. And he is starring in a remake of Heaven Can Wait, the Warren Beatty romantic classic. After, I take it, he finishes working with Edgar Wright on The Running Man. And Glenn Powell's an interesting actor. Like, we had a brief discussion a few days ago where we said, like, he has that star quality, but you really don't. He hasn't had, first of all, he hasn't had a franchise yet, or really that role that really defines him, which is why when they were marketing Anyone But You, it was weird, because I feel like the audience knows Sydney Sweeney, but Glenn Powell was like, okay, you've seen him here or there, but you've never seen him star in a film. And I'll tell you, that movie, I couldn't stop looking at his hair. It was perfect throughout. It never moved. So, but I mean, I like him. I have nothing bad to say about him, but it's just, everybody's putting him in everything. And as the theme of this week's show seems to be, I'm just afraid of overexposure, especially when he hasn't really gotten, he was in Top Gun Maverick, but it wasn't a hit because of him.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And now he has this movie Hitman with Richard Linklater, which I'm sure is going to be good, but is it going to like put him over the top where people are like, he is such a good actor? Because he did help co-write the film too. And it's been getting nothing but accolades, but we'll see, considering it's coming out on Netflix. So with them, it's always expect the worst. And then maybe it'll impress you to be actually decent. How are you feeling about Glenn Powell?
I like Glenn Powell. I think he is somebody who's got a good head on his shoulder. He's a talented actor. He's got that matinee idol look that the ladies drive nuts for. So it's all there. I think he is a total package. I haven't seen this Hitman movie yet. I'm sure we'll review it when it comes out. So at least he's taking some chances and trying to show that, he doesn't have to be like always the good looking movie star. He could be, like just a character part. But I think what's going on with him kind of encapsulates the problem of Hollywood and leading men today. It's that all these guys, whether it's Glenn Powell, Michael B. Jordan, Miles Teller, and the list can go on and on. All these guys are like, they get that one hit, but rather than doing like fully original projects that they could put their stamp on, they could build a franchise on, they end up having to do stuff that's already established. I mean, he's doing this Twister sequel reboot thing. And the Running Man, I'm actually going to give a pass to, because I think they could do a straight adaptation of that book as opposed to the Schwarzenegger movie. But I feel like that should be the only thing, after Twisters. But to see like, oh, he's going to remake Heaven Can't Wait. What's next? He's going to go and do a remake of The Parallax View as well. Like, come on, like these guys, Ryan Gosling, I just want them to do original shit. I want them to not be like the guy that has to be the young buck taking over from an older franchise like a Blade Runner or Indiana Jones or whatever. Like, I want new shit. I want the next generation of leading men and actresses to do original projects. Stop with the reboots, stop with the remakes, and stop with the legacy sequels. Because what good is that giving them? They're not making memorable characters out of these films. And it's like we're so gotten out of the way of like the days of a Paul Newman or a Clint Eastwood or a Burt Reynolds who did their own shit. Like that's what's disappointing me. But I think he's got a future. I'm not going to go and say like, these movies are going to crap out his career, but it's like him, Michael B. Jordan, I just want them to do their own shit. Stop piggybacking on the past.
Yep, it's because it seems like now people more care about making content rather than films, that will be remembered. So I think that's part of the problem because, I mean, look at Channing Tatum. Say what you will about him. He had franchises, but at least he was only in maybe one sequel of them, except for his own Magic Mike, which, he was just running into the ground. But at least supposedly this last third one was the last one. So I can give him credit. And again, I'm like, was anybody really clamoring for a Heaven Can Wait? I mean, you had Down to Earth as a remake. Yeah. You want to consider that. But I'm just like, just give it a rest. And this actually goes into what the next news story was, which is about, I guess, the theatrical experience in of itself. Because you have Sean Baker, who directed Red Rocket, which we reviewed here, and just won the Palme d'Or for Anora at Cannes Film Festival. And he was saying how that film would not have been possible without him seeing so many great classic films in theaters, because they made that much mark on him. And even Seth Rogen in an interview was talking about he doesn't feel like the theatrical experience will ever go away because people still go to museums. And, that's how you can look at movie theaters. I think we're going to start seeing a decline in the number of movie theaters, but I think they will always be there because there will always be people like Cinephiles fans and us, the Cinephiles, who will always want to go that extra mile for certain films that we want to see on the big screen, that we want to experience, not just watch, that we want to be inspired by. Because I already think, I know, not every movie theater is the cleanest and everything, but to me, they're like churches, places where you go to worship, these great films, even some not so great films, but watch them in like a cathedral kind of atmosphere with strangers all coming together to see this. Though don't know why they always have to sit next to me. But, so you can hear the sermon, which is the film. And I feel like we're getting away, because how are you going to feel inspired? I know people like YouTube, and hey, I watch YouTube too, but how are you going to feel inspired, let's say, watching a movie like Ferrari on your phone? Like, oh yeah, the sound design here is great. You can't tell because you're listening to it through a phone speaker, and you're not getting the full picture. You're not getting the visuals. In other words, the whole picture is not in front of you where you can't be distracted from it. That is why even as I get older, I know a lot of people make fun of people, but this is why we so specifically want big screen TVs, because if we're going to watch it at home, we want to watch it on something big where, again, you can't be distracted. Your eyes don't move. And I just feel like, unfortunately, films went from being important to just another thing to people these days. It became more content or something to help fill your day. I mean, I could blame binge watching, people binging things on weekends and not, sitting there taking stuff in, but it's not in the national conversation anymore. Unless you're a Quentin Tarantino, you're not going to be invited on a talk show anymore because you're not considered a celebrity. You have to go on random podcasts devoted to films or filmmaking for you to really get to know that person or voice. Like, on the plus side, Christopher Nolan could probably walk down the street and nobody would bother him because half the people wouldn't recognize him. Whereas versus the star of his movie, Cillian Murphy, everybody would recognize him, And I remember there was a time when it was director was as big as the star of the film, know? There were, I'm sure, like in the 80s, Scorsese could practically not walk down the street without being mobbed, especially by film fans. And it's not only there. It's just like, I understand we had to get rid of magazines because now all the content is online. But it's like, also, I was thinking, because I watched Tubi, and there was this independent movie called Whatever, that the only reason I knew about this movie was because of movie magazines back in the day, having advertisements for these films. And now I'd look at it, and I wouldn't know what the fuck this movie is. And again, unless I go by the log line or basically the poster, I'm like, do I really want to watch this? And I feel like I understand getting rid of movie stars, so it's just actors. But again, we're also kind of losing a quality where people can be informed before. Because unless you're really a movie fan, you don't know where to go to find out the latest movie news. You just are surprised when you go to a theater. It's like, oh, they're making a sequel to that? Gotta go, And, well, that's my spiel about theatrical experience, because I can go on forever about this.
Oh, yeah,
So it's like, I don't know. It's sort of like when all those film directors came together and gave money to resurrect a theater that played classic movies. It's like that. It's like that they had to come together in the first place just to do that. It's sort of like when they closed Cinerama, which everybody keeps talking about. It's going to reopen, but when, So it's like we're losing all these classic movie churches to me. And while I applaud AMC, for what they're trying to do, but also that seems to be more corporate. And if that's where I got to go, I'll go. But I think also a lot of people should support their retro movie theaters that are around them so that, these places can stay alive, because these are the only places you're going to be able to go see it. Because I feel like watching The Apartment it's okay watching it on television, but there's just something about seeing it on the big screen, Like, it feels like now I've truly seen a movie. That's why, like, when they put out when they re-release movies, half the time, even if I've seen it, I want to see it on the big screen so I can truly say I've seen this movie. So, I don't know. Do you have anything to say on the subject?
I do. So I don't think movie theaters are ever going to completely go away, because there are groups of us cinephiles, who, for all the big blockbusters that come out, there's still a lot of us that want to see, maybe the latest A24 flick, or the next Anatomy of the Fall, or The Worst Person in the World. We want to find those theaters that play those movies, because, they become increasingly harder to find on a streaming platform, where you have to wait a lot longer to find those movies on a streaming platform versus a blockbuster that could be out on VOD in 2 weeks. Right now, with what's happening with the box office, part of it is quality with these movies, and people just, the marketing, they're not really like out there to go see Madam Web or, the new Ghostbusters. They just look at it and they just think, oh, this will be out in like 2-3 weeks on Netflix. I can just wait for it. And I think there's a generational divide where people are just not willing to shell the money to see something that to them might look mediocre. But if it is like a big event, like a Deadpool and a Wolverine, or Top Gun, or Spider-Man No Way Home, where it's like, it's a must-see thing that you have to see on a big screen, or Oppenheimer or Barbie, then you're going to drag people out and they will go see those movies and willing to pay the extra premium price to see it on the largest format possible. But the more of that you get, the less of the middle-of-the-road movies. And that's the problem right now, is the middle of the road movies, your comedies, your dramas, even sometimes certain horror films will only go straight to streaming. They won't hit the theater. And if they do hit the theater, it's a very limited run. And, that's kind of bring me to Beverly Hills Cop, because I know we're going to talk about the trailer at some point, but I don't think that's getting the theatrical release before it goes on Netflix. And that's a shame, because from seeing that trailer, I want to see that on a big screen. I don't really want to deep down watch that at home on my home theater. I want to see it with the crowd whenever they're laughing, if it's that good. So I need that communal experience to really have that memorable feeling of watching a movie and coming out of it, and maybe a new star is made. Maybe there's a story that it stays with you for a very long time. I don't have that same feeling when I'm watching a movie at home and watching on streaming, because it's something different when you're by yourself, or maybe just with a group of friends. But you got to have the theaters out there, and I think there has to be more of a fight, not just to keep the theaters open, but to get more smaller films back in there, to have your Raging Bulls, your Ordinary Peoples, your Pulp Fiction type of movies that would not get the theatrical treatment today that they had back then. Those movies would not have the impact that they had back then if they had this type of format going on, where you could just, pay like one price. You could see it all at one shot. Like, no, I want the big screen experience with the crowd reacting to this shit. And so, yeah, we have to keep that fight going.
Exactly, because I'm like, like you said, think of these movies that in the 80s were just the regular movies of the day that now are considered classics. But again, think of any movies from today that would be considered classic. And most of them, half of them, you'd be like, well, I first saw it on streaming. instead of I saw it I remember seeing it on opening night. And just to show you how, I understand people's attention spans are like this practically now, because it seems like asking them to sit in a movie theater is like, oh, I have to put my phone down for 2 hours and have no distractions. And that seems like a challenge to them when it shouldn't be. And let's face it, most of them don't put their phone down for 2 hours anyway. So in the theater, they're still using it because they have to take pictures of the screen to share with other people. Or, oh, I want to film this clip, so I can put it out there for others to see. Or, the new trailer of such and such, I got to film it. And it's sort of like the whole thing with everybody, even on Instagram, more photographing life than living it and going through their memory. And that's what it feels like with these movies. Because I remember when you used to have to worry about going to see a movie on opening night, fearing it would be sold out. Now, no such thing. I mean, it still happens, but it's not as great a fear as it once was. Like, yeah, when you're going to see a Wolverine Deadpool, most likely that's going to be sold out in advance. But like, Furiosa, which of course we'll get to, but it's disappointing box office. And it was like, you could still see it unless you were going to see it in IMAX. You were able to get tickets still very easily, more easily than you should have been, because back in the day, I understand this doesn't have any big name stars, but this should have been an event movie, especially right before the summer. And while it did make some money, it didn't make the money it was supposed to. And it also, and this is another thing, is that this even started in the 90s. We're too clued into box office. And if a movie bombs, audiences somehow think, oh, then it must be bad. No, it's not that.
Not always, no.
Yeah. It's that you didn't go see, because none of you motherfuckers have problems keeping up fucking Venom and Venom 2. And I'm sure it has its fans, but what's the cinematic quality of that film? And you all went to see it. Some of you motherfuckers paid to see Madam Web.
Let's keep in mind, too, that, we'll talk about Transformers in a bit, but I remember the year the second Transformers movie came out, and that was like, until Avatar came out later in the year, that was like the number one movie at the box office, but it was a piece of shit, and it was trashed by the critics. And it's supposed to be good because it made $1 billion.
And we get sequels.
You get sequels. And are people still talking about that movie? Not really.
Not in a good way.
No, not at all.
So that's why I'm like, but yet, like you said, but because it made money, people consider it a success and want to see it. Whereas, Furiosa, I feel like is going to be a movie, unfortunately, not exactly like Scott Pilgrim, but something people will be like, oh, they're going to watch it on probably HBO and be like, this movie was actually good. Why didn't I go see it? And I mean, I'm sorry, it's not Fury Road 2. It's a prequel. But I mean, it has some of the best. Well, let me say this for when we review it. But either way, it's a film that I think people would enjoy if they gave it a chance.
Scott Pilgrim was definitely hurt by its marketing.
Exactly. And I think these are films like people discover late on streaming because, again, they're just looking for something to watch and then discover, oh, this was actually good. Why didn't I see it in theaters? I don't know, because you were going to see fucking Venom 2.
Yeah, there was that whole thing like that. That's the thing with Netflix now. Like Simple Game and even Law Abiding Citizen, 2 movies that did like okay box office. Now they're like huge on Netflix and they got sequels greenlit. So what does that tell you about this business now?
I'm like a Law-Abiding Citizen. Spoilers, it's going to be hard to do a sequel when
yeah.
So it's like Jamie Foxx facing another person seeking vengeance, but it'll be a woman. So it'll be like, oh, they changed the game. And it's like, no, it's just a shitty sequel. Well, to get off this subject, speaking of shitty sequels, I love you, Jake Gyllenhaal, but Roadhouse 2, really? We don't know if Doug Liman is coming back. If fucking Conor McGregor somehow lives to see another sequel, because this is where it gets tricky for Roadhouse, because there has been an unofficial sequel or in name sequel with Jonathan Skagey, but I doubt they're remaking that. No. So this will be an original Roadhouse tale. So where does it go?
European Roadhouse?
Why not? That's what they always. But see, they always try to do that with sequels that never get made. Like there was the Bad Boys European movie that was supposed to get made.
I read the script review for that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm like, where's he gonna bounce? Isn't he world renowned by now, or a former UFC fighter? And what problem is he gonna have to try and get over? Unless we're going to take half the cast back and like give Jessica Williams something to do. She just happens to own another bar.
Well, yeah. I'll say two things I would want in the Roadhouse sequel. I think Jessica Williams should be beefed up a little bit more and have a romance with Jake Gyllenhaal, not the Spanish chick. Even though she was nice looking.
She looked like she was a teenager.
She looked like a teenager, and it was just an underwritten love angle. I think it would have made more sense for him to get with Jessica Williams. Second thing, bring back Sam Elliott. Give him the same character name, no connection to the original, and he doesn't die. Just let him be the same guy. Give him a wig. I want Sam Elliott in this movie.
So he'll be Bruce Dern in this movie, basically in a wheelchair or with canes walking, and be like, I used to be the baddest bouncer, but age caught up.
I mean, who else? Tom Selleck?
I don't know. I'm just like, I'm just saying, I'm sure Sam Elliott still works. It's just,
he's still working.
So it's just be weird seeing Sam Elliott in an action movie and just kicking ass. I say let Bruce Dern be the villain. He's the one calling from jail. Like,
just hold on another couple of years, Bruce Dern.
Exactly. And can we get Joel Silver back in charge?
Oh no.
So this will be nothing but excess. He never hurt me personally, so I like Joel Silver.
All I know is that he's a yeller. That's what my instructors said at school.
He seems like, well, don't forget, in True Romance, all Rubenbeck is supposed to be based on him. So I'm like, hey, Scott Rudin was a yeller and a phone thrower. He's still working.
Not really.
Not as big as he used to be, but let me put it this way. I don't think Scott Rudin's like, hey, I'll be a producer for free on your project. I need work.
Maybe he'll revive Kevin Spacey's career.
Yeah, they should just make that the cancel movie. Joel Silver producing with Kevin Spacey starring.
Directed by Bryan Singer.
With T.J. Miller in the supporting role. I'd be like, we're going to call this the cancel tour with Carlos Estevez as the villain. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, not happening.
Well, if you need somebody non-canceled, you could get Isai Morales, because I think I'm his unofficial agent. I'm like, hey, when in doubt, cast Isai Morales.
Don't like his politics, but I still root for the man anyway.
I'd be like, hey, House of Cards, we need to replace Kevin Spacey. Isai Morales. Be like, hey, he just happened to lose some weight over the summer, and maybe he got some plastic surgery.
The gray looks good on him. I can't lie. Better than
he looks professional. It's something when he's even better looking than Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible sequel.
That's no lie, by the way.
So it's like he couldn't be a rival agent, the seducer.
He doesn't need a pop filter on his face.
They should have switched. He should have played the Shia Wiggum role, and Shia Wiggum should have been the villain. And
yeah, I guess, or John Slattery.
Could be, well, as long as he's not Carrie Elways, the buffoon.
His accent.
Hey, I like knowing the head of the secret American service is British. So anyway, the next story is, speaking of Irish and British, Cillian Murphy will for 28 years later. I mean, it's nice. I mean, this seems to be his first role after he won the Oscar. Is this playing up, playing down, or just paying back to what got you in, to the film world in the first place?
I think it's paying back. It just shows that he got the Oscar, but he's still Cillian Murphy. He's still a working actor. And I have no complaint about that. And he probably would be a welcome addition to come back to that franchise, and maybe this could be a significant entry.
And you notice that nobody's asking, hey, is Naomi Harris coming back? And I'm like, I want her back, and she was the more kick-ass version in that.
She's available.
Exactly. She's Oscar nominated for Moonlight. I know the girl is not probably coming back, who played the little girl in that film, and they fucking killed off Brendan Gleeson. Next story. Oliver Stone has an idea for one more narrative film that he'd like to do, I guess, and then he can just keep making documentaries. And I kind of want to see him make another movie because, like it or not, I mean, after a while, he just seemed to be the go-to guy, but he has made some really good, memorable film, and obviously has written some of the best scripts in his time. So I'm willing to give him another chance. It all depends what the movie's about. If it's another fucking Savages, no. But knowing him, I'm sure it's probably something very political.
It could be political. It could even be one of the scripts he never got produced. I remember he mentioned years ago he wants to do a Martin Luther King movie and really get knee deep into his controversies, which I'm sure the estate would not allow. But yeah, I want something good out of him if he's going to do one more. It doesn't have to be a war movie. It doesn't have to be another Wall Street. But maybe something that's not too far into conspiracy theories or anything that's of this climate right now, because things are pretty divisive, pretty heated. And yeah, I mean, I always thought he could have been good for an OJ movie if they had given it to him.
Jeez. We're going there. Yeah, he should have maybe made that OJ TV movie. Yeah. I'm sure he wouldn't have cast. As long as he would have cast Sterling K. Brown, it'll be all right. And not John Travolta. Yeah, it's like these seem like the times made for him. Like maybe he should have directed that Dick Cheney movie. That seems more up his alley. Not that there was anything wrong with the movie, but I feel like it would have maybe gotten more press if he had directed it. And because really, you also have to wonder if he's making this movie his last film. Is he also writing it, or is he just going off of a previously written script? And
he's probably going to write it.
Okay, so again, as long as it's not Savages. So Simon Kinberg, who took over the X-Men franchise, is in talks to produce a Star Trek prequel. And I guess if that is successful, he would take over the whole franchise as far as films. And
I don't know if I really want this still. It's just, they still really don't know what to do with Star Trek. I mean, I know there's all these new shows, and they have that Section 8 or Section 13 movie with Michelle Yeoh that's supposed to be on Paramount Plus. It just seems like they're in a rush to find something to do. But I can tell you, nobody's really screaming for another Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto movie. And to do a prequel, what's the prequel going to be? You did Enterprise on, UPN. That didn't last very long, but there was a lot of people who liked that show. Is it a prequel to The Next Generation? Is it a prequel set? What timeline are we following? That's what confuses me. They just said, oh, yeah, we're making a new Star Trek movie. Well, what the fuck is it? Because nobody seems to know what to do to save this franchise. And when they do try to do something, it goes completely against what Gene Roddenberry had conceived. So I don't know what they're doing other than just, we want to make a new Star Trek movie.
I think they're trying to keep up with Star Wars with these projects.
Well, if you're doing that, that's a losing proposition.
Well, I just say stop kicking Chris Pine while he's down. And I would like to see Zachary Quinto on the big screen again. Not necessarily in a Star Trek movie, but just seeing him in general would be nice.
But I just feel bad for Chris Pine. Every time they announce a new movie, they're like, oh, have you heard about it? Like, nobody sent me a script.
Yes, I'm just sitting here making my directorial debut that no one liked. So, I can't say it's bad. I haven't seen it. So, he's another one. Like, this hasn't been his year, his directorial debut. Then there was that Don't Worry, Darling that he had press tour he had to go through. So it's just like, can Chris Pine just get a hit and be left alone? Plus Wonder Woman 2 before that. It's like, Jesus. He just needs a role in a decent movie so people can just like, oh yeah, Chris Pine. And like he should be the one like Chris Evans all over Netflix at this point, just trying to find like, I'm trying to find my fit. And whereas like Chris Evans, you don't need to. You're a good actor. We like you. You deserve better than these movies you're being in for this channel.
Better than the Gray Man.
Like bag Ryan Johnson. Can we bring me back just in a different character and look? So, because that was like really his last really good role too. So, Pirates of the Caribbean. Jerry Bruckheimer says not only will the reboot be made, but also the Margot Robbie spinoff movie. How she's spinning this off this movie, I have no idea. Is she the child of Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley? Like Kaya Scorodino, all grown up and with a vastly different look? So I don't know how this spinoff, unless, because I didn't see the mermaid one. So unless she was a character there and they're giving her own movie, I don't know. Unless, I just hope not I'm Captain Jack Sparrow's long lost daughter, and they're gonna be like, let's ugly her up, give her a nose ring, give her gold teeth, and all of that, and be like, oh, it's like Charlize Theron and Monster. How are you feeling about it? Wait, let me just say, who's asking for this?
That's the problem. I feel that Jerry Bruckheimer's hands are tied. Because if he had his way, he would bring back Johnny Depp and still have him as Jack Sparrow. But yes, nobody wants this movie. Margot Robbie is great. I wouldn't mind her doing another Barbie or doing another, like, her own original project, because she is that talented. But come on, whether it's her or Ayo Edebiri or I heard Austin Butler was being considered to be the new lead, you're not going to have success unless Johnny Depp is Jack Sparrow. This is his franchise. Nobody gives a shit if he's not in it.
Well, we'll just have to see.
It's like making Indiana Jones without Indiana Jones.
Well, I mean, if Disney's willing to throw money at all these bad projects, why should this one be any different?
Well, yeah, this is the Bob Iger regime, and they're making a lot of boneheaded decisions that are driving the stock down.
It's like, bring back Michael, what was his name?
I don't recall.
From the 80s. I just remember Michael Eisner. He'll always have a special part of my heart. I'm sure people will say he's an asshole, but I will always remember him because he used to host The Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday evening. So I'll probably always remember him favorably for that. Just a quick story. Cannes, the award winners were announced. Sean Baker got the Palme d'Or for Anora, which I am really excited to see. Jesse Plemons won Best Actor for Yorgos Lanthimos' latest film, Kinds of Kindness. And the whole female cast of Emilia Perez won for Best Actress. A cast that includes Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez. So that will be interesting. I have a feeling at least two of these movies will end up on Netflix. Like Kinds of Kindness will make it to theaters, but I don't know about Anora and Emilia Perez. So those were really the big things of Cannes, other than Sharon Stone and Stephen Fry defending Kevin Spacey, saying that he should work again. I saw the Kevin Spacey, I guess, Unmasked documentary.
So did I.
And I'm like, well, even before that, I was like, yeah, I don't think he really needs.
Yeah, after, Saving Private Ryan, I can't watch the D-Day scene the same way after that documentary.
Yeah, for that reference, you must watch it. Watch the documentary, folks. Here's an interesting story that Judd Apatow has not been able to get a green light on 3 projects that he has brung to the studio. One was going to be a cancel comedy with Zach Galifianakis. Then the other one was actually going to be a movie starring Cat Williams, directed by Nicholas Stoller. And the third film would have been by the Lucas Brothers comedy. That's the one that's been the longest dormant. They are those twin black comedians, always wear biker hats and glasses. They're usually in minor roles in movies like 22 Jump Street. So one of the reasons the cancel comedy was, I think it was because while it's a good subject for him to tackle, it's kind of tone deaf coming from a cisgender white man who is a millionaire to write about culture. The Cat Williams comedy, there's very little information on, as well as the Lucas Brothers. But it also might be because remember when we were in the middle of the pandemic and he was like, America needs to laugh again. So I'm going to make this pandemic comedy about the making of a movie, and nobody liked it. And it was on Netflix. So it's like maybe it's one of those, he's kind of in movie jail right now because they were like, yeah, you got everybody hyped up for this really bad movie. But my thing is, as we've been talking about directors and projects, I'm like, I can understand why he might be in movie jail, but I'm like, don't close the door on him completely because look at how many hits he brought you. He brought you Amy Schumer's only successful film. You know, he even tried to make Pete Davidson into a movie star, which kind of worked. The movie didn't make that much money, but he got a series on Peacock off of it, playing himself again, pretty much. You know, so I'm like, I'm a fan of Judd Apatow. He'll keep making documentaries on his favorite comedians either way. But I think, at least with him, it's a breath of fresh air, bubble be damned, you know. And he's somebody who appreciates filmmaking and has a good eye for talent, you know, even if he waited all these years of when he was on the downslope to finally put minority movies out. Like, now you want to make a Cat Williams comedy? Why? Because of Club Shay Shay? Or now you want to make a Lucas Brothers movie after they've been out for how long and no one has used them? You know? So that's my 2 cents on the Apatow problem right now. How are you feeling about this?
Maybe the Cat Williams one didn't get made because Cat Williams is just very divisive with people, so maybe they just were too afraid to do that movie. Other than that, I think that it's just he's in a slump. I feel that they don't want to take a chance on a guy that makes very overlong comedies. Yeah, the last couple of films like Bubble and The King of Staten Island didn't really bring out the crowds. And, it's just comedy movies in general. It's tough to do anything really good without offending people or to get anybody out to a theater to see, the kind of stuff that he was doing back in the day. So I think it's just like a twofold struggle. It's the fact that he's in a slump, and it's the fact that the culture has shifted.
Yeah, because, it's also hard to get people to, like, after the pandemic, do I really want to risk, infection to go see The King of Staten Island? Most people are like,
and why would I want to see The King of Staten Island when I live in fucking Staten Island?
Well, that's you. Other people might not have felt the same. But also, it goes back to the whole thing with mid-budgeted movies. Like, most of them, that's why most of them end up like, No Hard Feelings should have been a bigger hit. And no matter how you felt about the plot line or distastefulness, that should have been a movie that should have been, in the old days, would have been a huge hit.
I think the kid was just too effeminate, though.
Well, that was half the humor,
Yeah.
But, like, again, with the bombing of that movie, it's like another one. And unfortunately, another thing where they feel like Jennifer Lawrence can't pack them in like she used to unless it's a drama, or something Oscar-worthy for her. So, next, we have David Cronenberg doesn't know if his latest film that played well at Cannes, The Shrouds, will be his last. And it's not just age and creative decisions. It's also going back to the theme of these news stories, which is that studios would rather like remake an IP rather than give somebody or a filmmaker like a David Lynch or a David Cronenberg that will make something totally original, might not be 100% accessible, but will be memorable to whoever sees it and will stand the test of time. And studios are like, we don't want to give you money for that. Like, if David Lynch came in tomorrow and was like, I've got it, give me the Divergent series, let me reboot it, they'd give him the money. But one of his original scripts, like One Saliva Bubble or Ronnie Rocket, and they're like, I don't know. But it's like, but look at who you are giving money to, you know? And like you said, it's disposable movies. I want to see, I understand I can't always have a meal that is made by a chef, but I don't always want fast food all the fucking time either, you know? I want a memorable meal to judge against sometimes these other things. Maybe one day I might actually like a Big Mac and think, oh, this is the greatest thing ever made. But I understand it's not of the quality as a steak made by a chef with fingerling potatoes and whatever and an original sauce, you know? So I think, unfortunately, just like everything is becoming content, I think a lot of movies, we're getting served too much fast food and not having enough necessarily home cooked or chef cooked meals.
I think of Cronenberg, Lynch, Paul Verhoeven, John Carpenter. I mean, Tobe was gone, but all these guys, they're titans of a time when you had visionary directors in sci-fi and horror. And now that's not just age, but nobody wants to give them the kind of money to do the kind of projects that they used to do that got them to the success that they have. And instead, they're forced to do stuff for television, or they have to retire. And so I think with Cronenberg, it's just, he's still got it. I mean, the last couple of movies I've seen him do, like, he really still has that touch as a director. But just in this climate, it's hard to do anything that's an original thing. And all they want is just maybe another Fly or another Eastern Promises. And it's just, that's not him. He could do, some serious bangers, but nobody really wants to give him the money for it. And that's a shame.
Yep. Now it's just up to his two kids who are now making films. But while they are good in themselves, they're not their father. He will always have his, outlook and his talents. And, unfortunately, the only other thing you can really do these days, you got to be tight with the head of the studio. That's why Ari Aster can keep making movies even after something like that Joaquin Phoenix movie that kind of bombed. That people were saying like was the worst theatrical experience they ever had, but he's still making movies and not having problems with budgets. So you got to be a Paul Thomas Anderson or, an Ari Aster where stars are willing to work with you and might take a pay cut just to work with you. So studios will keep greenlighting. And let's face it, Martin Scorsese, as much of a master as he is, the only reason he's getting half of this is because he's a national treasure in American cinema. That is the only reason. Because, again, they keep giving him, like, sure, you want to make a murder mystery, true life story about the massacring of Native Americans and still give it through the eyes of white people? Sure, 200 million? Cool. Now, any other filmmaker, they'd be like, I don't know. Or can you bring it down, or we'll do this as a limited series, like Costner. Moving on, the Silk Spider Society show that Amazon Prime had been priming, the project has been canceled, but they are moving forward with the Spider Noir series starring Nicolas Cage. Cage is getting up there in years, I guess. He's like, I'll do TV, but it has to be streaming TV.
I'm not screaming for either one of them, but I will say I do have more interest in Spider-Man Noir for Nicolas Cage and for that setting and what we saw in Into the Spider-Verse with him providing the voice. I'm intrigued. I just wish maybe Marvel had more of a hand on it. I mean, this goes back to the whole deal with Sony. They just can't seem to help themselves with just greenlighting anything that's in the Spider-Man license. But I will give this one a shot if it's done well.
Okay. And we have Blumhouse, who's like, hey, I don't know, is it every studio at the beginning of the summer must tell us everything? Because first we have Pixar telling us, hey, we're rebooting everything from the beginning. Which I'm like, so you're taking all the things that made these films special in the first place, and you're commercializing it, which wasn't bad enough when you made unnecessary sequels to them. But now you're rebooting? It's like, what, different voices? Because it's got to be the same story, I would imagine, you know? So they just made that announcement. But also, Blumhouse, of all places, made the announcement where they're telling us, you know, after we failed with the I Know What You Did Last Summer series, we're rebooting the whole thing. Not only that, it's sort of like that Disney presentation where, hey, did you like the Black Phone? Guess what? Sequel. Don't know how we're doing it. Ethan Hawke's coming back, though. Hey, you guys who liked Megan, guess what? Well, this one we knew was coming. Megan 2.0. And I'm not mad because, you know, the screenwriter is African-American, Keela Cooper. So I'm like, more power to you, sister. And that was a guilty pleasure. I liked Megan. So, but I think they have to keep that camp factor with it too. Yeah. You know, sort of like what they're doing with Chucky. The movie, I don't understand. I'm surprised Sony doesn't have a hand in this. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. It made money, so it was inevitable. And also, we have another Insidious movie. Do they make that much money still?
Good fans.
And now Exorcist is now the hot property with Mike Flanagan doing a whole. Is it a movie or is it a series he's doing?
It's a movie, and it has no connection to the Believer flick that just came out. This one is actually going to be a standalone story, still set in the same universe.
So we have all of that coming from Blumhouse. Okay, we'll do it twofold. What are your feelings on the Pixar situation?
I think it's just stupid. And if we're starting to now get to the place where you want to retouch all your classics, how soon is it that we end up doing a live action Toy Story movie with a kid playing Andy and CGI Woody and Buzz? It's just, again, Disney cannot help themselves. And this is what's running them to the ground right now when they have to keep tapping into all their classics. Why not do another Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers? Why not bring back DuckTales and do that as a live action movie, motherfucker? Like, come on, you got all this other IP. Fucking do Roger Rabbit 2. What are you waiting for? Because Jessica Rabbit's just too insensitive for today's audience? Fuck you. Go back to the past if you're going to do that. But not keep going back to the classics and digging down the well and then trying to, you know, diversify it, or to try to go and, I don't know, you're going to live action the shit out of it. And it's still an animated movie, like with The Lion King. Like, what the fuck is Disney doing? This is why you're losing money. You got all these IPs making billions of dollars and you're fucking it up.
Okay. Well, my thing is, I wish they would do, I know this is a past generation, but how they would have the Disney Vault and just re-release. I'd rather them do that with Pixar.
Do that! And bring back the fucking Ice Pops!
Oh, see? That was something I thought about recently, too.
That's money in the bank!
But I guess they're like, if we do the Ice Pops, I guess we have to do more modern characters, because other than Mickey Mouse, does anybody really who's not of a certain age remember? Well, I guess Goofy from the Goofy movie, but Donald, Daisy,
Pluto. What, you gonna make them gluten free? Make them gluten free. Just keep the same taste.
I think Pluto is the one who is probably the most forgetful of all the classic characters at this time, because you never really see
Pluto.
But we never see him in anything. Nobody updates him into anything. It's always Goofy, Donald, Mickey. And
yeah, but you know, now also too, like they're all up in arms with Tinkerbell because she doesn't wear pants.
Really, guys, this is what
we've come to in this generation.
And what are your thoughts on the Blumhouse sequels? And
I'm not surprised. I mean, all their hits are going to get sequels. It's just a shame. Like, you know, the success with Get Out. We can't find more original IPs like that. Like, come on.
Well, my thing is, I just feel like The Black Phone does not need a sequel.
Right, that's a oneer. That needs no follow-up unless you're going to do a prequel about Ethan Hawke as a kid who becomes a child molester.
Well, see, is he? I don't think he's a child. He's just a child killer.
He just can't have kids.
He's like, hey, there's nothing sexual about this. Like,
there's no deep relationship.
Hey, Edgar Wright is going to direct Sydney Sweeney in I don't know if it's a remake or if it's a more thorough version of Barbarella.
It's perfect. She's perfect for the part. He's the right director for it. Let's go.
I'm just hoping he doesn't follow Roger Vadim and Jane Fonda and they get romantically inclined behind the scenes. And well, I mean, I know Edgar Wright can do campy. I'm just like in Edgar Wright's line up these studio jobs all of a sudden, though. No original, not anything original written for her, but like, oh, I got, I've got Barbarella, I got Running Man. It's like, yeah, I applaud him after he didn't get to do his Ant-Man movie. That studios are now coming to him like, hey, what would you like to do? And he's like, boom, boom, I'm ready. And, hopefully none of them have that kid from Baby Driver in them.
I agree.
And Natasha Lyonne has now joined the Fantastic Four film, which is an interesting fit because now Natasha Lyonne's a great actress, but let's face it, recently Natasha Lyonne has played Natasha Lyonne in most things, or a Natasha Lyonne type character. So it's going to be interesting to see her in a studio movie of Fantastic Four where she can't be like, well, and it's like, how is she going to be? Like, if this was Natasha Lyonne Slums of Beverly Hills era, I could see it. But, now I'm not saying she's anti-studio film, but it's just like, it'll be interesting to see this interpretation. It just feels like how you were saying, like, it feels like they're going with like an indie cast for this movie, even though it's going to be a big budget film. So,
yeah, I think my theory with her is she's going to be the daughter of the puppet master, Alicia Masters, and John Malkovich might be the puppet master. So if that's the case, I'm all for it. But I do agree, though, like, it's only been in recent years. She's like now suddenly playing up this New York accent, and she never really did that before. I remember when she was in Blade Trinity, and she just spoke like a normal, like she's from the West. It was just kind of weird. Like she's been on Saturday Night Live, it's something weird like that.
So, I don't know. I like Natasha Lyonne. She's like, seems like somebody who'd be cool to hang out with. So I'm wishing her the best. It'll just be very strange seeing her in this type of role or in this film. Because you have Paul Walter Hauser as Mole Man. You have Julia Gardner as Silver Surfer. It just feels like they're throwing in everything to see what sticks here. Like all these multiple villains and all that. So
there's a mystery to this that I don't think we know yet.
I'm just hoping it's not a multiverse thing.
It's going to be a multiverse thing. I'm sorry to say.
Next we have, there's going to be a Tomb Raider series, and I guess kind of a reboot for the whole franchise by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And though this isn't something I'd normally be interested in, I have faith in her because, usually when she's behind a project, she excels the series, which is why it would have been nice if her and Donald Glover could have worked together on the Mr. and Mrs. Smith TV series. But I guess since he took over that series, this is her taking over another IP after the first season of Killing Eve that she did.
I just say stick with the writing, don't act in it, and
leave Phoebe.
I'm sure there's some decent British actresses that can handle Lara Croft.
Well, I don't think she's going to star in it, but I do like Phoebe Waller-Bridge as an actress and as a writer. So, but I'll give it a chance. Even though Tomb Raider the movie was one of the worst movies I saw in theater, and obviously I did not return for part 2. And
I didn't see any of them.
I know Daniel Craig got to start in one of them.
Yeah, the first one.
Oh, so then, yeah. And I've been through Daniel Craig's career since the beginning. Donnie Yen is going to return as Kane for a John Wick spinoff film. So I guess this will be the answer to that ending at the end of John Wick 4. I'm for it. As long as he can stop doing these IP Man sequels that go straight to home video, where we have to somehow explain he's IP Man 1940s fighting Mike Tyson. So
I'm for it too, but I feel like it's only going to bring out just the Donnie Yen fans and maybe people that are big into martial arts in general. I'm not sure if the people that run out to see John Wick are going to come out in big droves for that.
well, I guess we'll all see with Ballerina whether how many people are willing to just stick with, I guess, the world, because obviously they did not stick with the Continental. So
No.
um, next we have, let's see, what is this? Oh, everybody's favorite voice actor, Christopher Pratt, the voice of Garfield in Super Mario, has said he will return as Star-Lord, and he will definitely be part of James Gunn's DC universe. I would like to see him, like, maybe get killed in a Peacemaker episode, special guest star. But I don't know what it is with Chris Pratt. Like, there was once a time when he was like the next leading man, but it's like something died in him because, like, these choices are just so uninspired, uninteresting. And I don't know I don't know if people just like his voice because it sounds friendly, but who's sitting there like, yay, what I think of Garfield? I think of Chris Pratt. Let's get him for this. Or, hey, we're making a Super Mario Brothers. And even though we've even heard Mario's voice in video games, let's go with Chris Pratt. Because he sounds exactly like that.
Yeah, I think that for him, it seemed like in the beginning when he did Guardians and he did Jurassic World, he had that spark in his eye, right? He was like that young, ambitious actor who had dreams of being a big leading man. He would tell those stories about like auditioning for these big films and not getting them. And then finally one day he got that, and then like Magnificent Seven and Passengers, and like he's now like a top star. But nowadays it seems like he's kind of lost the sparkle in his eye. Even in that last Guardians movie, he wasn't the standout as Star-Lord. I mean, it just felt like there was, even though James Gunn's back there and all the same people are in play, something felt a little off about him. And I could attribute it to his politics. Maybe he's just working a lot and he's just tired out. Maybe he's a little bit on the Christian side. I really don't know. But it just, yeah, it seems like he's just taking anything these days and really just kind of giving half-assed performances. And it's kind of sad to see because I like Chris Pratt in general, and I wouldn't mind seeing this Star-Lord spinoff. And I don't know what he would do in the DC universe, but it would have to be something completely different. But I feel like there's something that is like that spark isn't there anymore.
Yeah, like I wouldn't have minded. No offense to Glenn Powell, I wouldn't have minded seeing Chris Pratt, let's say, in the Running Man remake.
Yeah.
Like that was something that I could see him being in.
Hence his father-in-law, it would have been perfect matchup
exactly.
right there.
Maybe there's still a role open for him in there. Obviously not the starring, but maybe a good supporting role. Maybe he could be one. Maybe he could be the talk show host or the game show host.
Or he could be the Mick Fleetwood part.
Could be. We'll see. Next, we have the Friday the 13th series has lost its showrunner even before the show has even premiered. And the other problem is that they can't make any of the movies because the rights issues are still in play. Even though Victor Miller, the writer of the original movie, he owns Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th. But for some odd reason, he's not allowed to. He doesn't have the film rights to it. And which somehow Sean Cunningham, who produced and directed the first films, he has the film rights. So that's why it's taking so long for us to ever see a Friday the 13th movie. Nonetheless, well, with the TV project, I'm sure they'll find a new TV runner. But since losing Brian Fuller, who made the Hannibal series, that was so good and critically acclaimed, I feel like you're taking it away without him. I just feel like it's going to become maybe a Freddy's Nightmares type of situation where it's just like, this isn't the Jason I know, or this is more like, the Wonder Years version of Jason, where it's like, let's see how he became this crazed mongoloid killer.
Or the Friday the 13th series that had no Jason in it.
yes, that pissed so many of us off.
Yeah.
Like watching it, like, oh, Jason week to week. Oh, it's cursed objects. I wouldn't mind that as a movie, or reboot that fucking show for a series.
Just do a movie where they're looking for the mask.
By the way, they did Ryan dirty on that show. He was always the one risking his life. And then the fucking final season, they get rid of his character, turning him back into a child because now he talks about a brother who was killed that we didn't mention until this last fucking season. So Roby could, I guess, have a love interest in the other guy who was Ryan's friend who helped them go track down cursed objects. And
that just sounds bizarre.
Hey, I'm just telling you, this was the writing behind that show, which I hate to say is still a guilty pleasure to this day. Next, there is going to be a Welcome to Derry prequel series with Bill Skarsgård reprising his role as Pennywise.
No surprise.
Well, since his action movies aren't making that much money, though we still have The Crow coming out, but boy, Kills World bombed. I don't think anybody even knew when it was coming out. But it does have a kick-ass soundtrack. But yeah, I'm like, it goes to that thing where it's not a sequel, but you don't need to explain everything or everybody's fucking origins. I don't mind clues or hints like that are in the movies, but I don't need you to literally tell me like, hey, here's this, see how Pennywise became Pennywise, unless fucking Stephen King is behind it. And, the guy who wrote the book. I don't want to see people's interpretations of where they think Pennywise started. I like him not knowing what the fuck he is. Is he a giant fucking spider? Is he a demon? What the fuck?
And I think people were turned off by the second one. It wasn't as good as chapter 1.
Well, I grew up with the TV miniseries.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's still not as good. Better facts, but not as good. Not as heartwarming. And then our final story. Yeah. George Miller has an idea for one more Mad Max.
That's actually not our final story, but go ahead.
Okay. He has an idea for one more story in the Mad Max saga, which would be The Wasteland, which would be a prequel about Max. And,
I don't think it's going to happen. We're going to have Furiosa, but the box office, no chance.
It's a shame. I want this last movie. I want, I guess, another trilogy from the Mad Max series of films. So if he could have gotten The Wasteland, it would have been great because he's in his 80s. So it's not like it's going to be, oh, wait another 20 years.
And I want more clarification about him saying like he wants to do a prequel about Mad Max himself. You had 3 movies with Mel Gibson in it. So what point are we talking about? Are we going back to the beginning with Tom Hardy, or are we going to do it like a story 1 year before Fury Road? Like, give us some clarity here, George. You're not getting any younger.
Well, according to his interview, it would be set 10 years before Fury Road, but you got to keep in mind Furiosa obviously so basically when he's looking off that cliff at what's going on, that's where the movie would take place, sort of like Furiosa. So
will we get a CGI Tina Turner? That's what I'd like to know.
No, you'd probably get somebody like Rihanna taking the role.
Oh God, no.
So, hey, she wants to act. Hey, she's a billionaire. Yeah, savage face.
Yeah, like Battleship really did wonders for her career.
Well, that Noir, what was that, Valerian?
That I know she was in that shit.
Yep. But I know it won't happen, but I'm really crossing my fingers somehow. Even if it's just, you make it for, like they doing with this new Blade Runner, even if it's just a series, for one season. I just give George Miller what he wants. He's in his 80s. He's another one who unfortunately took a very long kind of hiatus, and now that he's got the creative juices running again, time's moving against him, and he's in a new climate where it's like, yeah, box office rules all, and every film seems to have $100 million budget.
But remember who runs the studio. You think he's going to greenlight it?
No, or if he did, then he'd be like halfway through, like, we're never going to release it.
Yeah, tax write-off.
Yep. So maybe he will, just for the tag write-off. And then be like, haha, I've got this great movie you'll never see. It's WB Vault. Now, my question, if somebody else takes over the studio, does he get to, like, keep the Batwoman film and Coyote versus Acme, or does now the new head own it?
The new head would own it.
No. Fuck you, David Zaslav. Yeah, anyway, and now on to what is our final news story?
So our final news story, because it broke late yesterday, is that Chris Hemsworth is going to be in the G.I. Joe Transformers crossover movie. Weirdly enough, has no director or writer attached to it. Or I think they have a writer, but I don't think they have a director yet.
This is what happens when your franchise runs out. You're like, I'll take it. G.I. Joe transfer. Okay. I'm wondering, is this a panic after Furiosa didn't do as well? It was like, get me onto something fast.
I mean, it could be a panic, and they didn't say who he was playing, if he was playing Duke or if he was playing General Hawk or any other character. But what I can tell you is this, is that we do have a new sponsor from Super 7, the home of Reaction, and all their vintage masks and T-shirts. They do all sorts of brands when it comes to not just G.I. Joe, but also Transformers. They do retro figures of Dune, The Princess Bride, Star Trek The Next Generation, and so many others. They make incredible action figures and all sorts of pop culture stuff. So if you want to go and buy their stuff, including their Reaction figures, even the recently released prototype of Unicron from the Transformers movie, just put in this special code at AJ Epics, and you can save 7% on any product that you buy on the Super 7 website. So go to super7.com/AJ Epics, and you can get a discount on any item you want at Super 7.
Yay! That is it, and you were right. That is it. Our last story. I have 3 more.
Oh Lord!
Sorry, folks. Going through the notes. Guy Ritchie is going to do a young Sherlock series because the world needs more Sherlock Holmes stories. It's starring Hero Finds. Yes, that's right, Rafe's son. Considering The Gentleman was such a surprise quality show, I'm mildly interested in this, just only because Guy Ritchie's involved. And he's been proving, like, his last few movies have been kind of kick-ass and good. So I'm willing to give this show a chance. What about you, Andre?
I'm willing to give it a chance, too. I'd just like to know if it's going to be connected to the Robert Downey Jr. movies.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Maybe that's his way of saying Robert Downey Jr. is like, nope. Or they're like, Jude Law gained too much weight.
Yeah, because they were trying to do that third movie, and we still haven't gotten it yet.
Not that I was really desiring.
Yeah, neither was I.
But, it would have been nice. You know me. I like trilogies. If you're going to make a sequel, let's go for a third, just in case. Except I do not need 23 Jump Street.
I agree.
Nicholas Galzantine has signed on to play He-Man in Masters of the Universe, whereas Noah Centino's like, what the fuck? Nicholas Galzantine, however you say his last name, was in The Idea of You with Anne Hathaway, where a boy band member falls in love with an older woman, and we're at the point where Anne Hathaway is an older woman now. I've truly become old. I remember the Princess Diaries coming out in theaters. So, I don't know his work, so I'm just like, I wasn't a big fan of Noah Centino being He-Man, but, you're giving me another guy who I don't watch, who I've never seen in too many things, because I don't really watch too many romance movies. So, I'm indifferent on this news.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the kid. I'm a little worried with what I'm hearing about the plot, because it sounds like another rehash of the Dolph Lundgren movie where Earth is involved in the story. So it's just like, guys, just keep it in Eternia. Let's stick with what was in the cartoon, the original cartoon, not the one that's on that Kevin Smith runs, because I've heard a lot of mixed things on that. And it's like, you just made $1 billion on Barbie. Let's get this right. You know, they've been constantly trying to get a new He-Man movie made for years. And it's been a revolving door of actors and directors and writers. At one point, Nicolas Cage was going to be Skeletor. Like, come on, let's get this shit together. That's, again, you have money in the bank. You can't mess this up. But they always find some way, like, we got to make it relatable. It's got to involve Earth because people can't relate to some fictional world that's out there with the gray skull. Like, no, this is what I grew up with. Stick with the material. Yes,
make it like a sword and sandals pick that has a side.
Yeah.
Like Beastmaster when we were growing up, or Sword and Sorcerer.
If you want to darken it and make it like a Game of Thrones, I'm fine with that too. That would be cool.
Make it fucking weird-ass Excalibur. You know, I ask, please play up the Prince Adam He-Man switch angle, not just all He-Man all the time.
You can make it like Krull for this generation.
Only good.
Whatever happened to that Ken Russell guy?
Hey, bring
Ken Marshall.
Fucking bring
Ken Marshall, come on this show.
Bruce Dern, come back to us. Play the king. Or be Skeletor in voice only.
That would actually be pretty awesome. Or have him play Man at Arms. Bruce Dern as Man of Arms.
That's definitely going to be they'll probably be like Bruce Dern as Orko.
Hey, it worked for Ricardo Montalban in Spy Kids 3D. He got to surf in a CGI body at 80 years old.
I'm not going to say Bruce Dern is not cool, but Ricardo Montalban's always been cool. Hey, he wore a fucking chest piece for fucking Star Trek too.
I wanted a Corinthian letter as a kid. Why not?
I just have a feeling, are they going to give this to like Robert Rodriguez to make?
No, I think he's not on the list.
Okay, because is he still trying to make that Red Sonja movie?
No, somebody else is doing that, and I heard it's not good.
Oh, well. Either way, it'll be far less sexual than Bryan Singer's behind-the-scenes version of Red Sonja.
Hoo-ha.
Mahershala Ali has joined Scarlett Johansson in Jurassic World, which pretty much tells you where Blade is at.
That's exactly where I was going to get at, because apparently they have to revise this script again with another writer. Mm-hmm. And this movie was supposed to go into production, I think, either this summer or later in the year. But this Jurassic Park movie is supposed to start shooting relatively soon, at least before the end of 2024. I don't know when this episode's going to come out. If it's going to be like a couple of weeks from now, or, definitely won't come out in July, that's for sure. If you have to reshuffle some things. But I'm going to say right now, by the time we do the next episode of Unfinished Business, I think we will probably have news that he's no longer Blade. Because this is 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. He was announced at 2019 Comic-Con to be playing Blade. And at that time, there was no director, no writer, and no release date. They just announced everything else that was coming out. At the very end, they said, oh yeah, Mahershala Ali's playing Blade. And they released the logo. And since that time, 2 different directors, multiple different writers, including the guy we were just talking about who did X-Men 97, had written a draft. And at one point, he was going to pull out of it. And then he came back because, we're going to reduce the budget. We're going to bring in the guy from True Detective to rewrite the script. And we're going to get the guy that directed White Boy Rick to direct the movie. And it seemed like, okay, now we're getting on track. Oh, it's going to be R-rated too, just like the original. But now we're still going to change the story. Yet they're trying to also say, oh, no, well, we have the story all locked in. We're still ready to go. He's still going to do it. This is 5 years now. And this guy's probably had to turn down a lot of work because he thought this movie would be happening a lot sooner. And all those movies that were announced in 2019 and shows have already been released. They've been long since out. And that's the only one that has not been released, except for Fantastic Four, but that's about to go into production soon. So unless this guy's going to be really patient and maybe locked to an ironclad contract that says you can't leave this project until it actually happens, I think he's out. I think he is done. And the guy's almost 50 years old. You think he wants to be waiting till he's 55 for this? No way. And I'm not screaming for Wesley Snipes to come back, even though I do think he's going to have a variant show up in Secret Wars, possibly Deadpool and Wolverine, because there's been that rumor too. But I mark my words, Ali is out as Blade. And they're going to get somebody else probably before the end of the year and delay this thing.
Michael B. Jordan, maybe? And...
You know, they may get crazy like that because there was that rumor about Jake Gyllenhaal possibly in his running for Fantastic Four, even though he was already Mysterio in Far From Home. They might get desperate unless maybe Coleman Domingo plays Blade.
No. No offense to Coleman Domingo. I would be like John Boyega.
He would be actually an excellent choice. Or if the Michael Jackson movie does well, they go for Jafar Jackson's Blade.
No, I'm hoping Jafar. I haven't seen the movie or anything, but let's stop this Jackson legacy. Jafar Jackson could just be a one and done. Or, well, if you're gonna do that, what about his other son who was on a fucking Grownish and played Superfly in the remake as Blade?
So contrary to popular belief, that isn't Jermaine's son. I actually looked that up the other day. He just happens to have the name Jackson.
Oh, okay. I thought he was. That would explain the rat tail. He was grown.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, unfortunately. But I have faith in that Michael movie.
Okay, we'll see. All it takes is one. So now we are truly done with all the news stories. So we can move on to the trailers before we meet up to the reviews. Don't worry, folks.
There's actually one trailer we didn't talk about earlier that I think we should mention.
Okay.
And that's the Bratz trailer.
Which one?
The Brat Pack trailer.
Oh, okay. Do you want to talk about that first?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew McCarthy has directed a documentary all about the Brat Pack. Oh, damn. I was going to say Rat Pack. And he got some people to come back and talk about it on camera. Others were left in mystery, I guess. That's the whole thing. You have to wait to see who's in it. Because noticeably absent, Judd Nelson is not in the trailer. And, but you know who is? Emilio Estevez, motherfuckers. That's right. And he even says, the only reason I'm willing to talk about it is because it's you. So I'm like, oh, shit. Emilio's in this? I'm down. I mean, you got Ali Sheedy, too. You have Molly Ringwald. And when has Rob Lowe ever turned out anything? So
yeah, he doesn't turn out shit. He needs money.
Still looks good. It's just like,
yeah, he's going to be 60 this year.
Somebody needs to write a comedy with him and Brad Pitt as brothers. Because
they already did that show with him and Stamos.
Yeah, Stamos is starting to lose it a little, but he's still a handsome man. But Rob Lowe. I wonder, you think they're going to talk about the sex tape scandal?
You know, I don't think any stone's really going to be left unturned, you know, especially that whole tease with Emilio being like, I only talk to you because I got some stuff I want to get off my chest. And I'm like, oh, shit. I think there's some things in his book that I think he wants to talk about. Well,
of course, I can see why. Because supposedly the writer was supposed to be doing a story on Emilio. So Emilio's the one who brought him into the mix. He's Al Pacino and Donnie Brasco. It's like, you brought Donnie in. And you ruined all our careers. There's a reason Carlos is more popular than you. But well, it's just one of those things though that's like 10 years too late. You know, I'm gonna watch it, but if this had come out 10 years ago, you know, this shit would have made it to theaters.
I agree. I think it definitely would have made it to theaters. I think maybe they've already premiered this, I think, at Tribeca, so I don't know what the reviews are, but apparently they don't even have everybody coming back for a reunion, which kind of sucks. Like, I think that would have been a nice climax to get everybody from St. Elmo's Fire and Breakfast Club all together in one room for a shoot. Unless that's going to be a surprise for later, we don't know. But I was kind of fascinated like even the people that are not really considered in the Brat Pack that are in this. So you have John Cryer because he was in Pretty in Pink. You got Leah Thompson, who's been connected with a number of the actors, and Timothy Hutton, which was interesting because I know he directed the Amazing Stories episode that McCarthy was in, but I didn't think like he would be somebody you would get for Brat Pack. He'd be too elitist for that, to be into something like this. But Molly Ringwald, like the mystery that she may not be in this, or why would Judd Nelson be uncomfortable unless he's sick? Because remember, we were watching that Brooke Shields thing. He did not look healthy when we were watching that. But I'm curious about what's going to come out, like just how, I guess, everybody's reaction to that article and how it affected their careers. And like I said, the Emilio thing, I think, is what really has me hooked because, long story short, in the McCarthy book, which I think it was called Brat, apparently back in the 80s, there was supposed to be a movie about the guys that formed the Woodstock Festival. And they had approached McCarthy about starring in it. He really wanted to do it. They had also approached Emilio to play the partner. And when Emilio found out he was going to be in it, he said, I'm not touching this movie. And so there was this whole thing at that time where, like, after that article came out, none of these actors wanted to work together. And I'm wondering if there's going to be some dirt that's going to get addressed as a result of that book and the stuff that McCarthy said.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting angle, but it's also like he didn't really say any in his book. He never really said anything bad about like Ali Sheedy or Molly Ringwald.
No.
Either. He praised them, even though, Molly Ringwald got him involved in Fresh Horses. Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely am. Obviously, I'm going to watch it. And I take it you will be there too.
Yeah, probably the day it drops.
Okay. Our next trailer, Wolves, with Brad Pitt and George Clooney, that is going to have, I guess, a small theatrical window before being on Apple Plus TV. This came out of nowhere because there was no news of this movie before the trailer dropped. And while it seems to be an interesting premise where they're both fixers who get called in on the same case and forced to work together. I wish Amy Ryan got better work or better jobs. And B, I mean, I guess it's some sort of a dark-spirited buddy comedy that looks like it would have worked better if maybe the Coen brothers had made it, because it's just another movie where both of them just look like so cool old professionals doing silly things. And I mean, maybe to help remind the audience of Michael Clayton for George Clooney. But I'll probably end up watching this film.
Who's directing this movie again?
Oh, I didn't write down who was directing the film. And
yeah, because I only got to see partial of the trailer. I didn't see the whole thing, but that might give me a good sense of if it's going to be good or not, who the director is.
Hold on, I will look it up. And
I know it's not Steven Soderbergh.
No, though, that would have given me a little bit more faith in it, definitely.
Yeah.
As long as it's not one of his more experimental. And let's see, Wolf's John Watts behind the Spider-Man movies. And
okay, now that really does raise my interest.
Yep, written and directed by him. And so we'll see. So he's trying to show I'm not a one franchise wonder. Remember, who made Bacon Badass and Cop Car? And this is like his first film that doesn't have children in it. So, because usually most of his films are like coming of age. So next, we have the Wicked trailer of the hit musical on Broadway. And that is starring Miss Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo as the Green Witch. It looks okay. Not my forte. I've never seen the show. I know the story of the show, but I have never seen the production. The trailer looks okay. I have no problems with Ariana Grande. I'm actually a fan of her as a singer, and I've seen some of the stuff after Nickelodeon that she acted in. And Cynthia Erivo always we have an interesting relationship when it comes to films. Sometimes she's one of the best things in it, and other times it's like, but I don't think I'm going to run out and go see it in theaters. I will probably wait until streaming to watch it.
I've never seen the play, but when I look at this trailer, I'm not going to lie, it looks like one of these movies that's going to bomb, because a lot of these type of musicals that get transitioned to cinema these days have not done well. And Ariana Grande, all I think is that potato. And it's hard to get out of my head after you know what.
Well, at least you're not thinking of her trying to put her toes in her mouth. But like I said, I hope, because I would like some more musicals to be made into movies. But, I just feel like this ain't it. But it could have like kind of a Barbie resurgence where it's like all these people just come out to see it. I'm not wishing anything bad on it. I want it to be successful. I won't hate it if it is successful. It's something I can definitely wait for. But it makes me more want to see the stage show more than the movie. Next, our next trailer, we have Thelma with June Squibb and Richard Roundtree as June Squibb, who was in Nebraska. Plays an elderly woman who is seeking revenge, and she's using her grandson to help her with all the technical stuff. And she's going around town on one of those motorized scooters trying to get revenge on somebody. I'll admit, this has that kind of out of the box, out of nowhere type idea where it's like, I kind of want to see this and I'm kind of rooting for it. It's nice to see older actors actually get to do something on screen other than like, oh, you're just a patriarch of the family, and just give out pearls of wisdom. You can still be a character and petty at an old age. So I'm for it. I'm definitely going to see this movie again. I will probably watch it on streaming. I don't know if necessarily I'd go out in theaters to go watch it, though.
I would probably not pay to see it there. I would wait for it on streaming as well. But I think I was more interested in the fact that Richard Roundtree was in this movie. It's one of the last movies that he's done after his passing. And that kind of got me misty-eyed when I saw the trailer with Furiosa that, here's this one last film. Kind of like that one last, he's not Shaft, but he's got like that one last moment in the sun to do a little bit of action as an old man. And that's the sort of thing that's like, maybe a nice little going out party for Richard Roundtree. Rest in peace.
Okay. The next trailer, which is really a teaser, but I guess they're calling it a trailer. We finally got to see Megalopolis! Which will be playing exclusively in IMAX theaters. And if you go by the Cannes reaction, there's supposed to be a scene where they use a live actor in the theater who talks to the screen. We'll see if that will be added into this. From the footage, I don't know what's up with Adam Driver's hairdo, but just because it's based on a Roman tale doesn't mean he has to dress like it. I want to see it just for all the brouhaha behind it, because there was once upon a time where an experimental Francis Ford Coppola, it was a work of genius where we get Apocalypse Now, One from the Heart. And for some, the Cotton Club, once you see, the restored version.
Yeah, the restored is much better.
But then in later experimental Francis Ford Coppola, you get Tetero with Yellow. You get Twixt with, I think that was Elle Fanning and Val Kilmer. It's got a great cast. Natalie Emmanuel as the female lead. I'm there for that. You got Lawrence Fishburne in it.
Our friend Charlie Talbert has a part in it.
Exactly, Charlie Talbert. You got Shia LaBeouf. You have Giancarlo Esposito as the mayor of New York. Hopefully better than Adams. It's, though there are so many comedic possibilities there. I'm interested in it, even though it seems like every year Adam Driver must be in a controversial movie that it plays at Cannes. And so the reviews have been very bad to mixed on this. Everybody's saying it's something you have never seen before in your life. And some love it. Some are like, it's horrible. Aubrey Plaza is also in it. And I just read a book on Francis Ford Coppola, so I'm interested in seeing this, but it's probably something where I might, have a little drinky drink beforehand to comprehend what I'm watching. But I'm kind of looking forward to, I'm hoping a new trailer comes out that looks a little better. And other than the scene that was released about Adam Driver being able to walk on air, I'm gonna need to see a little bit more to like get me excited to see it. How are you feeling about the trailer?
I mean, the look of it is kind of stunning, but again, it could go either the way of an Apocalypse Now and be a masterpiece, or it could be a Cloud Atlas where it's just overdone and just complete nonsensical trash. And speaking of the whole idea of having somebody come out in the theater and speak to the screen, do you remember there was a rumor that when Fire in the Sky came out, that when they do the alien abduction at the end, that an actual alien guy in an alien suit comes out and starts scaring people in the theater? You ever hear about that?
I have never heard about that. Oh, man.
If anybody has, please leave a comment.
Because I'm like, that's one way of marketing. It feels kind of cheesy, though, for something that's supposed to be a drama. Though. I have unfortunately been in the audience where they did something like that in Men in Black, where before the show, there was supposed to be somebody sitting there in shades, and then supposedly 2 Men in Black come and take them away. But then they flash the audience, and it was just like, this is so stupid and sad. Like Men in Black needed more promotion.
It would have been cool, like when Gremlins 2 came out, if like you go to your seat, but there's like, pop-up Gremlins next to you in the seats. Joe Dante, call me up and come on the show. I want to actually pitch this to you.
This sounds like something they would have did like now with the 4X theaters, where you feel like you're in the film. So I'd be afraid what they do for Gremlins.
So you haven't been on that Star Trek ride in Vegas, right?
No, I have not.
You don't want to know what happens when you go on the Borg ship.
Yes, so let that be a surprise if I ever get to go on to that.
Unfortunately, it's not around anymore.
Oh, I'll have to watch the reenactment somewhere on YouTube.
Oh, it's on YouTube, yeah.
Oh, so I'll just go there. Our next trailer, our final 2 trailers, are probably the most highly anticipated trailers. First, we have Beetlejuice, with Winona Ryder, Michael Keaton, Catherine O'Hara, Jenna Ortega, not Alec Baldwin, Jeffrey Jones, not Gina Davis, and surprisingly, Monica Bellucci, who is also dating Tim Burton in real life, and looks like the character from The Corpse Bride. So it still feels like we're in that Tim Burton repeating himself universe. Because I'm going to tell you the truth, I'm going to go see it either way. Trailer does not look good. Like from the initial thing of letting us know Jeffrey Jones is dead. Like he's like, no more. I don't want to answer any questions. He's not here. But now it's Lydia. She's got a daughter. And somehow they have to bring back Beetlejuice. And even Michael Keaton doesn't seem to have the same energy that he had originally when he played.
He's 70 years old.
Hey, I didn't pick all this time to do the sequel. So again, it's just like, it just feels like, he wants to do it, but he can't do it like he used to. And my thing is, that's the linchpin of the whole movie. If your comedic presence it seems kind of tired and haggard, what hope does the rest of the movie have? And I mean, like I said, I could be wrong. It could be a surprise winner, but it's just feeling like this feels like half of Tim Burton's work, where it's like, this feels like a money grab. This doesn't feel like a passion project. So I'm going to see it, but I'm just not that excited to see it. And again, of course, you're going to put Jenna Ortega because that helps cross-promote Wednesday whenever the second season will be done and ready to be out. And
I'm excited for it. I mean, look, I look at this trailer. Yes, it does hammer you with a lot of member berries, sure. But I just like the fact that it feels like as close to old school Tim Burton as you could get. You know, very little CG, although some parts that are purposely done to look bad, but kind of fits with the aesthetic. And, but it's practical makeup, practical effects. All the old favorites are back. They even have Danny DeVito in there in a Blink If You Miss It cameo, which I actually thought was kind of surprising. I had to watch it again to find him. And, you know, listen, I think we're just scratching the surface with how potentially good this movie could be. And Michael Keaton, we're not getting enough of him yet in these trailers. I think we'll probably get more of a glimpse of it once we actually see the movie. But I got faith it's going to work out. I don't think this one's going to let us down. I don't think it'll be as good as the original Beetlejuice, but I definitely think it's going to be maybe one of the better Tim Burton movies in a long time.
Well, hey, I was hoping for Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian.
Yeah, maybe there'll be some nod to that somewhere, I would think.
Well, also, one of the original writers passed away of Beetlejuice, so
yeah,
maybe it won't be as sharp. And my thing is, I don't know. I didn't think the Wednesday trailer looked that great, and then I ended up enjoying it. So we'll see. And for our final trailer, we are taking a look at, they finally released the trailer for Beverly Hills Cop 4, or Axel F, as it is known officially. It looks more action-packed than I expected, for some odd reason. Now we see that the whole mission this time is to rescue Billy. I like seeing, obviously, all the original characters who were in it. Judge Reinhold back, and he doesn't seem as ridiculous or off the farm as he has in the past. I mean, it just looks good. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, being brought into it. We don't see too much Kevin Bacon, but I just have a funny feeling the captain's dirty. Yeah. We barely see his daughter in the film, Taylor Page.
That weirds me out a bit. I don't know where they're going with that.
Yeah, so it's obvious she doesn't approve or like her father. Got a signature action piece with the garbage truck through the streets and the helicopter being brought down. Now, I really feel like they should have introduced us to Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character earlier in the trailer before they just show the two of them in this helicopter. Yeah. Then he's getting arrested, and then Joseph Gordon-Levitt's out of jail. It's like, why weren't you arrested now? You were with me. But I'm having faith. This is, I think, like as you said in the past, this is the third Beverly Hills Cop movie we should have gotten. But the true question will be, because I feel like another reason Beverly Hills Cop 3 failed, it didn't have a memorable theme song. Whereas the first two Beverly Hills Cop had, memorable theme songs. So I'm hoping they get somebody in here to do a theme for this. I'm not asking for a shakedown, you busted again, but something along that line. Bring out the Living Pointer Sisters. Yeah. They can do a song or something.
Or just get Patti LaBelle while she's still around.
Yeah, if she's in the mood and not moody about it. But yeah, this trailer looks a lot better to me than, let's say, something like the Beetlejuice. It feels like it has that spirit in it, Yeah.
So I'll give some random thoughts. First of all, I think this is better than the first trailer. It really,
yeah, definitely.
It looks like it's shot the way Tony Scott shot Cop 2, which, even though it was more action driven, I still like the visual style of it. So that really has me going. And my worry initially was, and when we had John Ashton and I asked him, what tone was this movie going to have? My worry was that it was going to look like Come to America 2. It was going to be all, high key lighting and very stupid. And thankfully it is not. You see a couple of shots there, when Billy gets caught and the truck chase, that feels like an 80s action picture, and that's the one thing that I wanted. But a couple of things did stand out between that and the poster they released. So with Taggart, with John Ass and our friend, and check out his interview.
Yeah,
I have a feeling he's either the mayor or the chief of police, because of the fact that we don't see Billy with him, not until like that shot with all of them in the car. I think he must be like in a high position where he can't do anything until like the very end. Because there's that moment where Axel's like, come on, you got to be a cop again. And it sounds like he may be like maybe semi-retired this time around, and kind of like his hands are tied politically. So that's one theory I have. Another thing too that I also found very interesting, when we were talking about that scene when Axel's arrested and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's like running his whole rap sheet at the desk, you notice he mentioned the incident in 84, 87, and 94. So that confirms Cop 3's continuity is not being ignored, which makes me think the daughter is Teresa Randall's kid. And that could make perfect sense, even if she's not in a movie. That's how Axel has a kid, even though it was never established in the other films. And another thing that, maybe it's the one thing that bothers me already, you know, like everything looks fine, and they had the, you know, the combination of the Axel F and a Neutron Dance kind of remix in there, which was kind of weird, but it was cool to see. It was cool to hear. But the poster, I wanted to see who was working on this outside of Mark Malloy, who's directing. And I was looking at the music credits, and they said Lauren Bath is kind of composer, which I'm really like, I thought we were getting Harold Faltermeyer back. Now you're getting the guy who does all the Bad Boys movies. So we're going to go with like a big orchestral score. I want a fucking 80s synthesizer score, man. So it's like, I don't know. That's the only letdown for me, is like no Harold Faltermeyer. You know, they're going to keep the theme. But otherwise, I'm excited for it. I just wish they put it out in the theater before they put it on Netflix, because I think I want to see that in front of a crowd if it's going to be really funny.
Well, it'll probably play like at the Paris, which is the Netflix theater. So that's probably going to be your best chance to see it on a big screen.
If you like this review, please be sure to like and hit subscribe to be alerted to new episodes in the future.